Go ahead and repeat the question.
If you have a specific question for a person, please say that name. Otherwise, they're all supposed to answer. All
May I make a suggestion?
So one thing I must say that if one pretends, one never is. So it's a paradox. Illusion of knowledge, illusion of work, illusion of bhakti. Similarly, pretension of what one is not to put after the gap. It takes away the effort, doesn't it? It makes one feel already that one is there, one has arrived, and there can be no more dangerous a situation, because then one perpetuates a lie to the world and one begins to believe in that lie. And then one doesn't arrive at all, because you believe, you are projecting that you are already there. And if you are already there, there is no need to project, that's the other part of it. But outer world works on a different basis, because it has, its aim is not divine, its aim is not truth, its aim is not beauty, its aim is to success, ambition, money. So anything which can get you quick success, McDonald's, Kentucky's, that's how the outer world is. Whatever can get you a quick money and quick success, that's what is supposed to be of value. But it is at a very big expense to the inner being, and that's what I think slowly people are beginning to realize. You know, that famous story of selling a pot of, selling your soul for a pot of porridge, that's what it is. It's a very dangerous thing to do, pretension.
If we be a part of the same world, how do we take that and not?
No, we can be in the world, we are in the world, no doubt about it, we are part of the world, but not in that sense that we are working in the world, we are acting in the world, but we need not belong to the world as it is. We have to belong to the creation of tomorrow, to the future, or if we can, to the divine. So while we are acting in the world obviously, but we bring into this world new forces from beyond, from the future. We act according to the divine will, and then yes, there will be consequences, which may be unpleasant to start with, but need not always be so. And we leave it to the divine, who will take care of whatever we need, whatever has to come our way, and we act according to what is true and what is sincere.
So we just keep ignoring?
Ignoring the consequences?
No.
Possible? What others are doing?
Yes.
Definitely. Even forget spirituality. In any authentic growth, if we are governed by opinions of others, then we are into politics, not spirituality. That's what we read also. Mother says, no, that trying to project so that others may think about us in a certain way. Certainly, if we are into that, then that's a different business altogether. There are so many examples I'll tell you of, just a couple of stories. But a couple of stories I am remembering. There was a family which had invited mother to come and meet their guru. This is very early times, and there in the agenda. And when the mother went and she saw the person from just some distance, she realized that he is no guru but an asura. And the being of that person came rushing to her, because he knew, now she knows the secret. But she had to tell him that, don't worry, I know this is how the world works. That's how people are. And she came away from there, but that didn't prevent her from seeing. And that's what happened in many of her examples. She goes to a church where a confession is being made, and a priest is sitting there, and she says it was monstrous. That whole experience of a lady confessing everything, and the priest is, listening to her and as if forgiving her. And she said it was monstrous to see that. So, it's not just world as it is. That world is everywhere, even in so-called spiritual life. And we are accountable only for ourselves, not for what others may think about us. If we get into that groove, then we won't take even the first few steps on the path. Because it needs tremendous courage. Tremendous courage.
But visualization, imagination are some of the ways people are given to self-improvement.
Yes.
If you are sick, imagine, visualize that you are healthy. Now, is it not fake till you
No,
get
that's
better?
different. That is, imagination we know it is an imagination, but it's an imagination that opens the door. It has a power of realizing what is being imagined, which is different from pretension. In pretension, there is no effort, no imagination means I want to be cured and I start with that faith that I am cured, and that's a wonderful thing. But here, pretension specifically applies to let's say that people often have this tendency to say, I am always truthful, and there can't be a bigger lie than that. So that's a pretension. So definitely imagination as a method of realizing something or opening a door. More than realizing it, I doubt if imagination can lead to realization, but it can open a door. Definitely it can open a door, and once the door is open, then other things follow which are very different. That's a different realm. Pretension is deception. It's a power of falsehood acting in nature. Usually it comes from ambition, the wish to be thought of in a certain way by others, the wish to become great in the eyes of others, the wish even to look pious and holy. Nowadays holiness sells.
There are two versions of truth that we have seen in Mahabharata. One is Yudhishthir version of truth, which is also associated with ego, perhaps, if we try to follow it now. And then is Krishna version of truth. I don't think we are qualified enough to understand Krishna version of truth. But now we are somewhere in between. Who exists
No,
in
see,
day-to-day life.
Sraddhalu made a very clear reply in response to a disciple's query regarding Krishna. He made it very clear, and I think that's the ultimate yardstick. He said very clearly that I do not know of any instance in the Mahabharata where Sri Krishna ever spoke a lie. Now, regardless of, Mahabharata has many versions, many things are written there. Mahabharata is not one person's creation the way we have received today. It's well known now. If you compare the original verses and many other which have been extrapolated, many things have been written. So those stories cannot become the yardstick. At the same time, Aurobindo says very clearly that if you allow a falsehood, however small, to slip through your pen or mouth, how can you expect to be a servitor of truth? It's not possible. Now, that said, in the Mahabharata, probably you are referring to the story of Yudhishthira where half a truth was told, that one instance. Otherwise, if you want to say that, when the sun was set, when it was not set. Now, that even if you take that the story is true, now Sri Krishna himself doesn't speak truth, he speak a lie. He gives to Yudhishthira certain choices. I quite agree with you that Yudhishthira lived by a certain kind of sattvic ego. That's what he was. Otherwise, he would have never put his wife and brothers at stake because they never belonged to him. Or kingdom, because it never belonged to him. How can he put the kingdom at stake? The fact is, he lived within the realm of the sattvic ego, where you are speaking truth not the way it is understood in the highest sense, but what you understand as truth. You are being truthful, which is a great quality. But when truth is referred to in spiritual terms, it primarily speaks of the will of the divine. What is the will of the divine that must express itself at a given point of time? Now, there is no doubt that in the Mahabharata, the will of the divine was for the Kuru clan to go away and many arrogant Kshatriya to finish off. And how it would express itself, who will become an instrument, is a different way. If Yudhishthira would have refused, that no, I am not going to say it, there would have been other ways by which it would have happened. But he gave that choice to Yudhishthira. Maybe in a way it helped him because his extreme rigid sattvic ego that broke down. And Yudhishthira from that moment was a man who was very grounded. That's how the story goes, that his rath started touching earth. Initially it used to be little high. So I look at this story in a slightly different way. It is the sense of self-righteousness in which Yudhishthira was trapped, and he lost it. He came to ground level, which is very good because you can really evolve in a beautiful way. So that was the message for Yudhishthir. But it was not a dictum for everybody that, well, whenever you have to fulfill anything, you can speak half truth, half lies. Second thing, in that particular war, the fate of a civilization was at stake. And at that point of time, just to be good in others' eyes, remain good in front of others, look, I never told a lie, whereas the whole civilization is going down, that was the crucial choice. That also Sri Aurobindo speaks of in essays on the Gita. But one thing was clear, that it was not dependent on Yudhishthir. Yet Yudhishthir was given this choice. And I suppose the choice was given as a self-corrective to him for self-righteousness. Because that ego is very difficult to break. We don't know what would have happened to Yudhishthir after that. But I think he must have got back to a state of normalcy which would have helped in his evolution. That's my surmise about it.
The principle of fake it till you make it is a valid principle in a domain where the goal is to fake. In Hollywood, it would apply. In certain political spaces, it would apply. Where the domain is of that nature. The point, though, is what you make it would be fake, would be a house of cards, would not last, would break down. Which is okay in those domains where the goal is to make a house of cards, which you know will break down and you have no long-term interests. The question is that your domain? If it's not, then that principle does not apply to you. And in your life, in your workspace, you would have to follow the principle which is relevant for your need. If you are a businessman, you could choose fake it until you make it, knowing full well what you make will be short term and you'll end up in jail perhaps eventually, or you might escape it also. But what you build will not last, will have no lasting value, will not change human space or human quality of life. If your goal is to make an impact of something that lasts or which helps human evolution, then that principle would be replaced by a principle of truth, which alone can last. So, in the unfolding of time, that which is intrinsically true will last. That which is fake will break. In your workspace, similarly, the question would be, what is your role? If you're surrounded by people who want to fake it, you have a choice, either to follow that if that serves your objectives, or you follow that which for you means something lasting, and you would make a difference which would be far more than them. If in the hierarchy of things in your workspace, there are those who value what you have to give, then you will of course get selected and get promoted. If there are people who value the fake, well, that's what will go through, and the company will break down very quickly. It won't last. You will take another job eventually. Preferably take a space where your values match the workspace. On the other hand, if you are in a position of responsibility, it matters what you do, it matters what others do. You have a responsibility to ensure that others do not follow fake values. You cannot isolate yourself and say, I'll follow my life, let them do what they do. You have a responsibility to imprint these higher values in your workspace and to nurture a new collective value, a new principle in administration, management, growth, research, whatever form it is. And it is these spaces in the world which work on these higher principles that will nurture and assist the forward evolution of humanity. They are the ones who will make a lasting difference. And I'm going to point to an example here, which is a company like Google. When they first began, they had as their motto, do no evil. Those of you who are familiar with this, Microsoft was known as the evil empire because everything they did was destroying competition. They did very little creative work. They just killed their competition, co-opted key elements into their operating system and basically bludgeoned their way into a monopoly. So they were called evil empire by all the software community. And when Google came in, they said, do no evil, we will not follow that. Which is what rapidly led to Google's expansion and its preeminence, defeating Microsoft so rapidly. Once they got there, there was a very interesting internal discussion, and the recent CEO of Google, who just resigned by the way, came up with a statement saying, Eric Schmidt, he came up with the statement saying, that was the most stupid motto we had. How do you define do no evil? And we threw it out. From the point they threw it out, Google's entire direction of development took a questionable turn. And a decline has begun. They lost out to so many other competitors, including Facebook, etc., etc. So I'm just giving this as an example how, as long as you live by values which are eternal, what you build will have an impact which will be also long-term. If you live by the fake, well, you have a short-term or even pointless, meaningless outcome.
Maybe one philosophical point which may help to also understand Hegel has this principle that you cannot achieve or realize good by the means which are not from the same good. You cannot arrive at the result which is good by the means which are bad. It won't happen. This is not going to happen. That's why if you fake, most probably you will arrive at fake results. Even if you have something in mind to achieve something greater, but the means have to be of the same kind as the aim. Interesting, yeah? It's a philosophical postulate. It's accepted. Everybody knows about it, but we never think about it. So you have to choose the means which are in accordance with the aim. And in Upanishads it's beautifully said that tapasa brahma vijijñāsasa. Recognize Brahman by tapas. Tapo brahmeti, because Brahman is tapas. So you can realize Brahman only by the means of Brahman. There is no other way to realize Brahman. And it is a very good point towards today's topic on sincerity. This is exactly where the whole issue lies, how to be sincere. By the means, you have to achieve that aim by the same means which that aim is about.
Next question.
So there are two different questions that I have. The first one, when you were giving lecture on sincerity, Vladimir, you mentioned about the 33 pillars, and I would like to get some insight on what they are. 33. I was a little clueless about the 33.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah,
Second
go ahead.
question.
I'll ask the second question later.
So it is the image of the 33 sisters in the Veda. Aurobindo comments on them also. These are hues, yeah? When the dawns, they are sisters, one after the other, they come, changing colors. Most probably it is from this Arctic period. This symbolism was taken from the period when there was very long dawn, yeah? Several months. 3 months you are growing into the full light, then you have darkness, and then you come back to light. So from that period of Arctic night, the symbolism of the 33 dawns, 33 hues, 33 sisters was taken. But what is interesting, they are growing in light towards the sun. So they are kind of hewing the path towards light. And this period of the dawn, it's very early in the morning, and then it was taken as 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. That's Brahma Muhurta, when the light for the first time breaks. And Sri Aurobindo beautifully starts the whole Savitri with this view on the dawn. And then there is a period of Savitar, when we have this Gayatri mantra, before the disk is visible. But when the disk becomes visible, then the period of Savitar ends and Surya comes into vision. And that is most probably from the symbolism of the supramental manifestation still waiting for us. At least I think so.
Whose sisters are they?
They are sisters of each other.
They're daughters of the sun, I think.
There are 33 hues. 33,
Sisters of dawn.
yeah.
Oh,
Luminous energies which grow progressively in the being. So it's not like one day suddenly we have the supramental illumination. The being is prepared through successive levels of awakening into the light. So they are all doing their work. They are working in harmony with each other. They are supporting each other. Therefore, they are sisters. Of course, sisters can fight, but I think brothers fight more often. Sisters are more in harmony.
Number 33 also occurs in the Veda in the 33 Koti Devata.
Yes.
33 categories of gods. I don't know whether it has any relation to that one. It's saying,
That number 3 is 7, 1, you
no,
have to see them in
33.
multiples.
I'm saying 33.
Yes, so
33
there will
Koti.
always be multiples of 3s like that. So 3 would mean, supposing let's say you take the basic figure of 3, maybe Vladimir can, throw more light on that, say mental, vital, physical world. Now there would be many processes connected to that. So each of them you have to keep multiplying, like 100 stands for perfection. So 3 into 100, then that way the figure will come to 33 Koti Devata, because
The word
on
Koti is
each
not
layer,
Koti is not in the sense of crore.
yeah,
Koti is in the sense of categories.
yes. So there would be 3 basic categories from which many sub-categories will arise. So each god will perform a certain function, each power. Let's take a human body's example like the brain. So there is a godhead who will govern all the movements of thought. Then in the brain itself there will be many aspects. Each of them is a godhead who is taking care. If you take the occult understanding of just the human figure, forget about the whole cosmos. But the basic principles will be 3. That's how it will be. Or the 7, depending on which way we are looking at it. Like 100 comes from that, 7 sevens are 49, and 49 into 2, and you have 2 ascending and 2 descending current. That's how the figure 100 comes in the Vedas.
Just as a point of curiosity, the Freemasons have 33 steps in their hierarchy. And at the end of the 33rd, you're supposed to be an enlightened person. It's the same concept that you go through 33 degrees of awakening into full awakening.
The beauty of this imagery is that it is compared to the posts, to the sacrificial pillars. So you make one sacrifice and then you see the path to the next change, next transformative point, and then next, and they are compared to these sacrificial posts. So from hue to hue, there is a change, fundamental change of our nature. And that is what I was comparing to progress, when you see the path, and then you have to have a courage to walk it. Well, these are the insights which we got from our meditations in Aurobindo. I just wanted to share them with you. How far they are valid, or it's another question. But they were valid for us.
So the other question, pardon me if it sounds pretty rudimentary, but is the inner being different than the Antaratman? Or the inner being the same as the Antaratman?
The inner being, when you say inner, what do you mean? The Jivatma is also inner being,
Yeah,
and the Antaratman is also inner being.
yeah. So it is one and the same, inner being is all together.
It's a more comprehensive word, inner being. But when you speak about the different parts of the inner being, then you can speak of Antaratma, the inner mental, the inner vital, inner. But inner being is a very generic word, general term. It's like everything is in the cosmos, but doesn't mean the stars are equivalent to the cosmos. Stars are also part of the cosmos. So Antaratma is the core.
So if I am looking at the mental being works in the mental plane, so it corresponds to the mental plane, and the vital being corresponds to the vital plane. Is that the right way of thinking?
Universal mental, universal vital, you mean, right? So just as there is a surface physical, vital, mental, there is an inner vital, inner mental, inner physical. So the inner mental, what you are referring to is, it more easily penetrates into the universal mental. The inner vital will more easily penetrate into the universal vital. Unlike the surface mental, surface vital and surface physical, which are grossly under the, let's say, the formation of the ego self. So it binds us. It's like we think this is me, but the inner mind it can easily enter into the cosmic mind and get messages from there. But Antaratma is a very different thing. It's the core, your own core, our own core. Is the divine element within us, spark.
I believe the word used is inmost being.
Yes, that's a safe word. Inmost being. So there is inner and the inmost.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I've become aware myself and several of my friends who are becoming more aware. We live in Oklahoma, and what we notice is that we don't feel as comfortable out in public because of that awareness of much negativity around us. But I want to know what you are teaching your students on how to cope with the daily life when you're developing your deeper abilities. We can't all go to ashram, you know?
The word recommended is equanimity. The practice that is recommended is equanimity when one is living in the world and practicing yoga, because as you rightly said, we all cannot go to the ashram and it's not easy to create an ashram. It's also dangerous sometimes. But equanimity is the key practice which can provide the interface between us and the world. Because as we grow in consciousness, something within us begins to become distinct and different from the general worldly consciousness. Let's put it like that. Because it's not only about negativity, even the positivity of the world is a very limited thing. So that's something which begins to become distinct and different, has to be safeguarded against the invasion of the world currents. That's the practical problem, because otherwise, even before the fortress is built, the sands are being washed away. So there is a need to a certain extent to shelter or seclude oneself. It's a very valid need, and practically it's very useful. And yet one is in the world, one is meeting people, one cannot avoid and one should not. So then the practice is to be done is equanimity, which means that you will meet people with different thoughts, opinions, ideas. Events will happen which are not according to our likes, our wishes, our fancies, our preferences. In all those situations, we have to practice equanimity. Not to judge people, but to see them for what they are and leave it at that. Even judging positive and negative becomes a kind of judgment. So, of course, one needs to, it doesn't mean blotting out distinctions, but till the true understanding comes, when one can really discriminate and see how truth is manifesting. manifesting in different people in different ways, best is to practice equanimity. Yes, yes. Equanimity is the key. 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 Equanimity is the k And that's a yoga in its own right. If one can live in perfect equanimity, it is, in a certain sense, it's already a kind of yoga.
In any growth of consciousness, the first thing that you notice is that you become much more sensitive. Because in the growth, you have opened up to a higher grade, and with it comes a deeper perception or a greater sensitivity. And it will feel as if you are under assault, or you may feel overwhelmed. But circumstances have not really changed. You have just become more aware and more sensitive. If you can persist, then gradually a greater strength fills that sensitivity. If you can evoke or become conscious of a deeper foundation of peace or the divine presence, either within you or around you, then that itself will form like a bulwark, which will give you the inner strength to be able to manage, deal with, not be overwhelmed with whatever you are sensing. And so, it's not enough to become sensitive and say, okay, that's the path. That's one aspect of the path. There are other aspects. You have also to deepen the inner foundation, and what will come from that foundation will then give you the strength and support. Meanwhile, as an interim, you can also invoke a layer of protection. This can be done by a conscious invocation, as if forming a cocoon of protection around you, or simply learning to contain the outline of your awareness of your aura and modulate its, so to say, width or its edge to manage these things. But these are skills which you will learn. Once you know that it's possible, you'll begin to experiment and you will learn very quickly.
Another practice which Mother Aurobindo recommend, and Mother say that Aurobindo strongly recommended that, it's to see the divine in all. It's a very simple way to go about it, and you completely ignore that part which is seemingly dark or negative. Just ignore it. See, just focus only on the divine presence. It's not a complete scene, but it's a big help. She speaks of it in several places. Because that is the ultimate truth also.
There was an interesting comment before you made on that you can lie, but you should not lie to yourself. And it made me think, because truly speaking, the world is not a very welcoming place for the truth. Yeah? You cannot go on saying the truth to everyone. You will be totally demolished by the world. So you have to keep quiet or pretend to not to know, not to see, or withdraw or something. You have to do something there, especially in this world, in this setting. But what it made me think that Aurobindo speaks about 3 types of lies, yeah? And that is interesting. One type of lie, when you lie and you know that you lie, it's very easy to correct. Yeah? You just know the truth, but you said the lie. Yeah? For the reasons of making comfortable others or yourself or relations or whatever. The other type of lie, that you lie and you don't know that it is a lie. You think it is a truth. Yeah? Also very easy to correct. Once you find out that it is a lie, you can correct it. But there is third type, which is nearly impossible to correct, where you start pretending, mixing it, so to say you mixed up lie and the truth to the extent that you can't distinguish them anymore. And this is the most dangerous type. And what I think about today's world, if you watch television, especially Russian television, maybe not only Russian television,
hear too. Fake news.
Every television. But somebody said a very interesting thing that they injected with falsehood the substances slowly into our system that we could tolerate them and become tolerant towards falsehood. And this is the most dangerous kind. And we are living in this mixture, and I can feel that it becomes more and more difficult to distinguish. Do you feel this? Like 10, 20 years ago, it was easier, it was clearer. Maybe we were younger, I do not know. But it feels like this. Nowadays, it's nearly all muddled up. Even if you say the truth, there are so many liars speaking the truth. And this is really dangerous.
In that case, is it safe to say that when you say lie, it is defined under what circumstances you say that lie? And that lie can be a truth. An example is, if one terrorist is following somebody to kill, he takes a shelter in somebody's home, and the terrorists come and knock on the door, and the household person says that there is nobody here. Now he is protecting that person. So would you call it lie or truth?
Dharma.
Aurobindo answered a similar question. This was Surendranath Johar was arrested with his driver while he was fighting for India's freedom. And he wrote this question to Sri Aurobindo saying, the British want to know if my driver is part of my group. If I tell the truth, he will be arrested. And I don't want to lie because I want to follow whatever ideals. What do I do? Sri Aurobindo explained that truth is on many levels. The immediate truth is that yes, the driver is part of his team. The larger truth is that he is fighting for India's freedom. And if there is the slightest doubt in the minds of the British, he must fully exploit it for the larger truth to be protected. You see, truth itself is on many levels, and we have to see the larger purpose for which we are making that effort. It does not justify blatant lying, but when a situation of this kind, creating a clear conflict, offers itself, you have to see protecting the life of the man who is innocent is the larger truth. But if the man you are protecting is himself a terrorist, then the game changes.
It was a very beautiful passage in the Veda. Your truth is covered by the greater truth. So there are layers of the truth, dynamic truth. And it comes to that truth that he is the part of the organization, but there is a deeper truth, and even deeper behind. And if we can see those deeper layers, so to what truth you would refer as truth? It's up to you, of course.
Some years ago, I guess you all remember, we had this gentleman here who was a Catholic priest, and I was kind of surprised because I had mixed feelings about kneeling and adoring the Mother and all that. And I talked to him before he left. I wish he would come back. And I said, you are a Catholic priest, you go to Pondicherry, you do all this. And he said to me, number one, this is where sincerity comes in. You stay, you be sincere. And there are many saints in this world, they all have different faces. Just don't lie about it. Just tell people this is what you believe in, this is what you do. And you don't have to be ashamed, you don't have to be afraid. And after all, we all end up in the same place. Do you remember him? We had a little bit of an argument because I didn't understand that if I die, can my soul come back in India? Can you answer that? Or if somebody dies in India, can they come back and be into my family?
You will not need a visa.
I had the argument with a priest. He told me I misunderstood. So what happens? Can my soul be
Your
born
soul is
again?
free to choose to take birth wherever it wants. It
Yes,
chose
sir.
here by freedom. This is the compulsion of the soul. The soul is free, always.
Three of you, if you can come in, like Alok said that one way that we can follow is equanimity. So once you tell us that we follow equanimity, but initially it is a mental process. So when you face something, first this postulate, it runs through your brain. Oh yes, I have to practice equanimity. So that is a mental, that's a thought actually, it's at a mental level. How do you really bring it, how do you imbibe into yourself? How does it get into your brain that becomes your natural response? How do you practice that?
Wanting to do practice equanimity will be a mental thought, but the actual practice will not be a mental thought. It takes several forms. For example, one form it can take is indifference to all the touches of the world, to what people say, do not say. So one becomes, the practice is upeksha towards all that, indifference. Then another form it can take is the stoic form, where one is able to bear all the impacts of the world without winching and go straight to the path, regardless of what people think or say, etc. The contrary opinions, etc. Views. You stay with what you believe in and what you know to be true, and you practice that. And the third is a more philosophical equanimity, where you use thought to understand the nature of the world, the relativity of people's opinions, the relativity of our own views. We are constantly evolving. Once we understand the relativity, we do not hold on to something as an absolute truth or as something sacrosanct, because we are constantly progressing. So these are several ways through which one can bring in the spirit of equanimity. But as you rightly say, that all these practices do not really bring the true equanimity unless one deepens it and touches the bedrock of the soul. Then true equanimity comes. It's effortless, because you are in contact with something which is deeper and truer, and you value it, and you know that that's what is really counts. So no more of trying to practice something, but till you arrive at that state, two practices which are very helpful is, one is to aspire for equanimity, not just think that I wish I want to be practice equanimity and I should. At that point of time, add a flame, little flame into it, that mother, make me put me in a state of equanimity, or simply, as she says, call peace, peace, peace. You can add to the list of things peace, calm, equanimity, and just keep practicing it. Whenever there are reactions within the being, to observe them, to offer them to the mother, and pray for equanimity again and again in those situations, circumstances. And then eventually also keep striving to come deeper and deeper into contact with the inmost soul. Because till that happens, it will always remain something unsteady, and one should not, that's why yoga has to be done without despondency. One will find that in a certain situation one is able to practice equanimity. In a certain other situation one is not. Or if you go on, you will see that the intensity which could touch one very easily, now that becomes more and more. The impact of the world has to be too much for the equanimity to be shaken. Then you will see that even when equanimity is shaken, you get back the poise much faster. And then you will see that all these impacts touch you on the surface, where the deeper being remains separate. So there are several stages through which one passes. But the fundamental thing is that keep on aspiring and keep on deepening the consciousness till one stays in such a state that it becomes natural and normal. Till then one has to put in that effort and seek from the grace. But problem is when people start justifying. It's opposite. Oh, I'll naturally get angry. So and so has made me angry. Or he thinks so differently from me. So therefore he is my enemy. Or he is in falsehood and I am in truth. So there are so many ways in which we deviate from the practice of equanimity. Equanimity is a yoga in its own right. And incidentally, Sraddhalu has laid so much emphasis on it. If you read the synthesis of yoga, you will see maximum chapters and pages are on equanimity. Because it's the foundation. So there he describes these three methods: indifferent, stoic attitude, and a philosophical attitude. Even a religious turn of mind can help one in practicing equanimity, where you accept the different contacts as the divine will, not that they are the divine will. We should not have this illusion that all that happens in the world is the expression of the divine, at least not the direct expression. But we can take that attitude that whatever is coming to me is coming from the divine. And if we go ahead with that practice, after some time we will arrive again at that equanimity, the sense of acceptance. So whatever helps, many things will help in the process. And if one is sincere in one's seeking, all these methods automatically will grow up from within. Equanimity at physical level to the differences of temperature and physical issues. When one is sick, when one is hungry, equanimity at the vital level, hurts. People are swayed by ambition, or when people praise them, they start believing that I am really somebody sitting on a pedestal. And all good salesmen know this trick, selling a hat. And equally, when people criticize you, you don't start believing that, you are somebody really down in the dumps or a creature of the mud because everybody says so. Similarly, equanimity in the mind, when there are contrary opinions, you don't have to rush into actively negating it. You don't have to do that. Widen yourself, see where it is coming from, what is its relative place, its relative importance or unimportance. Look at it from that perspective. So widening again helps a lot in the practice of equanimity. So many things. Peace will help in the practice of equanimity.
There is one point to equanimity where maybe I want to add. It was difficult for me to come to this, to understand equanimity for some reason, because it looks like something like peace, very tamasic and negative in a way, or indifferent. It is all true, and it's very difficult to practice as long as we do not have something positive from the spiritual experience. But the moment it starts coming, the spirit, and you see that equanimity or equality helps that purity of the experience, then you value it. Before it comes, it looks like a very difficult exercise. Yeah? You have to keep it in spite of that you don't believe in it. Yeah? You have to value somebody's, whoever it is, whatever he does, you don't feel that way. Everything is in you bursting. So, as long as there is no yet spiritual experience, this equanimity is quite a difficult thing. And by the way, in the prayers and meditations, Mother hears the voice, you remember, yeah? Says, one thing you must do, and that is equality. This attitude of equality. The rest is assured, but the equality you must keep. That's where we can fall, yeah? Because of our adherence to the truth. We want to be part of the truthful process, and there we can fall. We should not take it as our own, because it is not our own.
Also, it builds a solid base. It's a foundation. Aurobindo says that for action in the world, you need equanimity as a foundation. In pure yoga of knowledge, you don't need equanimity. In pure yoga bhakti, you don't care about equanimity. But the moment karma yoga comes, or any kind of yoga which has a contact with the world, you need equanimity, because that's the basis through which you will act. If there are preferences, if there is a strain based on the world currents, then one cannot act the divine will in the world. It's not possible.
Yeah. I am here since last 50 years, and this is the first time I really feel stressed out with this politics. Every day lies, and repeating lies and lies by our president, and people believe, and he got elected on those basis. And I always pray that truth will come out. Truth is more powerful. And each indictment happens, I feel so good. Because so far there are 5, 6 indictment charges and they are guilty. So finally truth prevails, but it's taking time. I wish it really, the truth moves faster to get out of this stress.
And will be replaced with a greater falsehood. Sometimes, see, it's not an easy game which goes on in politics. What appears as false sometimes is less dangerous than what appears as true, and everybody is singing praises for something because it looks very beautiful, but concealed within it is a solid undercurrent of falsehood which is going to eat away the very entrails of humanity. So one has to be very careful. That's why politics is so muddy that one should stay away. So
Can't.
yeah.
Don't watch TV.
There's
I
no
know
way.
that.
There are people who speak very nicely, who say very nice things which, will please everybody, and right thinking people think, yes, he is the Messiah, but actually behind it may be a most dangerous lie sitting. So I think one has to wait. That's why truth doesn't act like that faster, because whatever is built quickly is demolished also very quickly. Besides, through all this, humanity becomes more conscious. It is purged of many of its own conceptions. That's how we grow, no? Even in individual life. That we chase a rainbow, then we discover, oh, this is not what I was chasing. US dream destination, then after some time people realize, no, it's okay, But then after some time one says, now I'm living here, it's okay. So one gets adapted to that. But these successive illusions are necessary for the progress. That's how we progress. So same thing applies at collective level. Humanity experiments and tries various things. And then it discovers through it, then something else. None of that is true. It's not that X president is truer than President Y. Let's understand that. Just that humanity gets disillusioned first from one, then from another. Then it becomes ready to search for a still deeper basis which is yet not there, and will not be there till the mind of humanity is ready and its soul aspires for that to manifest. In politics, most of the average person, what are they really asking from governments? They are looking for their own selfish benefits, laws and systems which can help them, their own selfish interest. So how is truth going to manifest there? Wherever, even in India, anywhere politics, if you see, average citizen wants his own personal interest. Government should take care of his own personal interest. That means cut down income tax rates, make it easy, make everything easy so that he can amass a lot of money, and that's regarded as a good governance. Where is truth in all this? So humanity has to go through many layers of disillusionment before it can collectively even aspire that no, we are sick and tired of all this. Now we really want truth. Very difficult. Truth is that there should be no borders and no boundaries. That's true. No need of visas, no need of, when you walk in, you should just walk in. After all, land doesn't really belong to anyone if you really look at it that way. But how do you, it has its own dangers though. You see what is happening in Europe. So it's not so simple. Sometimes outwardly it was very nice, yes, we are welcoming people. What happened with the welcoming of people? Very easily then things can get mixed in and corrupt the whole structure that you have built. So it's all to be seen in a totality of readiness of humanity.
We are at this present juncture in history in a very peculiar stage where there's a whole technology of deception. very sophisticated. So sophisticated that they know exactly what will impress you. And so the thing which is convincing you is more likely the one that is the receiver. If you find the media violently attacking somebody, most likely he's doing good because he's threatening their status quo and interests. So you have to be very careful not to jump to conclusions because you're being given a certain information. Just because everybody is repeating each other, they create an echo chamber to swing your thought process, to compel you to believe something, because if everyone's repeating it, it must be true. Okay? So your starting assumption that so and so is wrong or bad or lying itself needs to be reviewed to look behind the scenes for what the actual facts are. One of the things you find in this particular situation, and it's happening all over the world, when the media revs up the population to get agitated over something, if you ask yourself, why am I disturbed about this? You can find no logical reason. They've whipped up your passions and suddenly you're angry with someone and saying, that man is whatever it is. But ask why? I don't know. And then you know that you're being played. So one has to be extremely careful. When nobody's attacking or questioning a politician, very likely he is one of those who is the real danger, as Alok pointed out.
So Sri Aurobindo has mentioned, I believe in one of the places, that the true God will send leaders down who are the keepers of the truth. When is that happening?
Date and time of date.
In India, they believe keeper of the truth has arrived, but the rest of the world.
Everyone will fall short. Even who you may think is keeper of the truth will fall short. They will fall short, but they may be doing something genuine. Because that's the nature of politics, which is always a compromise of interests. Currently, at least. And that will not change until the collective population becomes sufficiently awake. Because your current quality of politics is a reflection of the current state of collective consciousness. And the leaders it throws up are also a reflection of that.
When man is ready really to receive the truth, it will come. That's what I said, even in India, every person is as selfish as anyone else. He just wants policies which are comfortable for his personal and business and other interests. And this government I have seen some very good things which have been done. And people didn't like because it hurts their personal interest. So, man has to be ready.
But to complete what I was saying, this mixed play is not all. If you look at only that, you will get confused and lose hope. The real truth is not in these things. It's working from above and through all this, and is not identified with people. This is the point. You're looking for real truth. Where is it? It's here right now. And the beauty of it is, it works through these falsehoods.
Yes.
In spite of the falsehoods, it's nudging, pushing, getting things moving forward. That is Kala, time, or a grace, or a greater power. Nothing can oppose it. Even that which goes to oppose it is used by it to further its larger goals. Look at that. Put your faith in that. Hold certainty in that. That gives you the hope. And that's soon. Relative time, in evolutionary time, soon. The fact that there is so much chaos coming up, so much confusion as never before, is the very sign that it is working, and the powers that be that are now imminently seeing their end are getting agitated and putting up their most desperate resistance. If they knew they would last another century, okay, we have time, what's the big deal? When they realize they might not last more than 10 years, then they get really desperate. And that's what you're seeing now. Positive sign. You see? Don't look to people, look to the greater power which works beyond people, in spite of them. Great hope.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's coming.
And cake.
Sraddhalu, thank you for enlightening us, but Dr. Alok Pandey had yesterday birthday, that's why he's late, so we are cutting the cake.
Wow.